So at this point, we've started reading instead of more classical literature. Now we're kind of delving into my personal favorite of stuff, where it's science fiction and fantasy, and it's like a small mini unit I would be teaching in the say the fall, either the fall or the spring, so that like it's actually what I would think would be good weather to curl up and read a book in. Anyway, so why not something that sparks the imagination? And one. Good morning, class. So, what all did we read this week? Anyone remember? And yes, we had Ender's Game. I wouldn't. How did everyone enjoy that one? Was that one a bit difficult? Yeah, I'm actually not surprised to hear that. It was not the easiest thing I could have picked, but I wanted something that would really kind of make you guys jump a bit. Remember? I wanted your imaginations to feel alive when you're reading what I put up for you guys to look at. So we have that. What else did I suggest reading? Anyone pick one of the others? Of course you did, Steve. Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. I am actually kind of pleased you liked that one. That is, I'll freely admit, it's not everybody's cup of tea, but the mixture works, doesn't it? It's entertaining. It's a little weird at moments. And what is the answer? 42, yes. And what all? Who picked? Did anyone pick anything else? Fantasy fan picks Lord of the Rings. You got the which one of them did you pick? Oh, you started from the beginning, so you got the Fellowship. All right, good. Never never start a series from the middle. You will end up angry at yourself at the end of the day. So that was a good call. I should have specified that a little bit better, but I have faith you guys know what you're looking at and what you're picking. So, oh, one of you picked Frankenstein. All right. So, for you, I got this question: what is Frankenstein the name of? Is it the name of the monster, or is it the name of the doctor? You're right. Just the doctor. No, no, fair, fair on you. Anyone who's ever read it, most people seem to think that Frankenstein is also the name of the monster, but it's never actually called that. It is strictly referred to in the novel throughout it as the monster, or even on occasion something like I want to say my son. Like the the monster is not named at all. The only named people in relation to it are Igor and Dr. Frankenstein himself. That's it. It took me a little while to actually figure that out when I was younger too. It's kind of sneaky, but it's a good curveball because when you read the name, you really do expect the whole thing to be about the monster, and therefore that's the name of the monster, right? But not. So, did everyone enjoy what they picked to read? Good. I'm glad to hear it. And I want to try and keep a little varied list so that we all stay on topic, but we still have stuff we can actually enjoy on there. So that's kind of what I was trying to do with the poetry lesson earlier on. So I just want to make sure everyone's genuinely following along, enjoying what they're reading. I want you guys to get how much I enjoyed reading when I was about your age too. So I still enjoy it almost that much. now I kind of have to cut that reading time a bit so I can make sure people's essays and uh, assignments and whatnot are ready to go. So I'm I should have selected themes though, shouldn't I? Because the things you picked don't actually have comparative themes. They're all in the same genre. Now, we're same genre grouping. Now, I admit that part was kind of on purpose. I should have done themes, but I'll deal with that at a later time. The fact they're all from the same grouping is on purpose, though. Science fiction and fantasy are both. Well, before I say what they are, why don't one of you tell me what you think they are? Yes, they're stories set in other worlds. I mean, you've seen how people have done the movies for some of these, like even Star Wars or Lord of the Rings again. They're set in these amazing landscapes, yes, but that's kind of not all there is to it. They have a tendency to free up your imagination in such a way that you almost can't help but recreate what you're reading in your head. They also allow them to explore themes that can be discussed in more regular literature that is a little harder to get away with in that literature. When you're doing something in a science fiction fantasy setting, you have a little bit more leeway. You see? Uh, for instance, there's the rather still even today touchy subject of slavery. You can't really comfortably talk about something like that in a more modern setting. You can if it's a historical novel and it applies to the historical novel appropriately. But outside of that select instance, the most usable way to do it would be to fit it into an environment where there are no preconceived notions or anything we have to fight with. Or not really fight with, well, contend with would be the correct way to phrase it. But anyway, uh, it's a matter of coming across correctly in that sense. Using science fiction and fantasy as your vehicle, however, allows you to do it without actually stepping on anyone's toes. It's a very open environment that allows you to talk about things that normally you would not be able to get away with. Slavery being a good one, but there's others like the topic of racism, which is that has been prevalent in a way that I can't really discuss it at any length in this class because this is English. But there are philosophy courses and whatnot that would be much better suited to such a dialogue. Yet, I would like to point out just for a moment that such a subject is extremely difficult to get away with discussing in any medium. At least in the case of science fiction and fantasy, you can apply the racist card to a character or race or what have you that's in there that is clearly not human, and it hits a little differently in a way that it keeps from angering anyone, I would say. It's not it's not a pretty subject and it never will be, but at least using that as a mask kind of allows you to again avoid sparking a war essentially, like a war of words. And that's that is again one of the glories of these two genres. You can like that's there's those two subjects in particular that benefit. You can actually discuss them in this setting and avoid so many problems. So, what what other kinds of say touchy subjects could you come up with that would benefit from being put in this setting in this kind of setting instead of something more traditional, we'll say. What do I mean by traditional? Oh, I simply mean like fiction writing that is set in the modern day, or even historical fiction or nonfiction writing. Like, clearly these things need to be written in this way, but at the same time, it's stuff that almost deliberately hits hard, and I'm simply trying to go for the subject of what would be a thing you could talk about in these two specific genres that you can in others, but kind of softens it a bit so you can discuss it more, I don't know, comfortably, perhaps? That may not be the right word, but it's the best one I've got for it. Uh, yes, the subject of war is a good one. Subjects of war and imperialism. Thank you for kind of calling me back to Star Wars on that one, because you don't get much more heavy-handed, clear-cut with imperialism than the Empire from Star Wars. I'll freely admit that. So, I mean, it is the name. That, like, there's no really better comparison there than I could come up with for that. As for the subject of war, that is very fair, actually. Uh, War is something you can cover in these genres, make it seem almost exciting in a way, but still you also get to kind of show the horrors of war if you explore some of the background of it. And again, being in this fantastical excuse me, non modern setting kind of gives you that freedom to explore these things again without trying to upset anyone. You can manage to actually show just how some of what makes it as horrific as it can be in that way with that medium, and yet it looks slightly less horrific than what we see in reality if anyone actually looks into it. The idea of just war in general is not a good thing in any way, shape, or form, and yet here it is. But at least in science fiction and in fantasy, we don't have to see the worst of it as it shows in life. You see what I mean? Okay. Does anyone else have anything they could think of that benefits from this kind of covering? I don't know if it's a benefit, but that's clever. That's like a new way to retell events in history with a different lens. I've never thought of that. That's actually really clever. I like it. Okay. So give me an example of what you mean. Like, retelling what, for instance? Uh, so you're an East Asian fan like I am. Got it. All right. So, Edo period or like the Warring States period in particular? Okay, yeah. Got it. So you could talk about things that happened during such a time frame, give them this almost veneer of fantasy or science fiction, and kind of recolor it a bit without losing any of the story that you're trying to retell, or the history you're retelling, I should say. Yeah, that's that's very clever. That's an idea. I mean, it's not the question I asked, but it's a better answer to a question I didn't have. So I could roll with that. Uh, Anyone else have ideas like that, or did we just kind of all get blindsided by somebody's unexpected awesome? So, all right then. I want you to take a few minutes, do small groups. If you like, those of you who've done the same book, would getting together would be the best. So, do small groups, discuss what you've what you read for the week, and then see if you can figure out what maybe underlying themes there are in there, and then we could talk about that after you're done. Just what I mean by themes, I mean really anything that you can kind of see as a come together point, like anything that it talks about at all. So anything that caught your attention, I'm certain someone in your group, no matter who's in whose group, will have an idea that one or the other members didn't have. So have your 3 minutes and have fun discussing. I will be happy to listen after we're good to go again.